Hi, I just purchased a Hero 3 Plus camera which comes with the Pro Tune and Camera Raw white balance, and I've just been shooting some footage and I just wanted to give you my impressions on the Cineform codec, which is bundled with the GoPro 3 and I believe the GoPro 2s. And I've never really got on with this codec. I remember it years ago when it was first put into Premiere 3 or 4, I think it was, in order to handle HD footage. I've never actually been sure whether or not the Cineform was better in terms of overheads. It certainly takes a massive amount longer to render. So if you're going to render something back out to Cineform as a codec, say for instance you had 2 minutes worth of footage which was going to take 10 minutes to render with as an MP4, that would take 2 hours on Cineform. That's what I found out. So I mean, you know, that's pretty bad. But on the timeline it does actually scrub up quite well, and this is my raw footage from the camera, which is a little bit slow. That's with no color correction. This is with color correction, so it starts to struggle a little bit. But the problem I have really with this is in terms of quality and what you're actually getting. And the file sizes are massive for these Cineform files compared. Right, file size wise, if we have a look here, you can see that this is the original footage, which is 1.6 gigs. And when I converted that in Studio, it then became 9 gigs. And then when I actually just added a bit of sharpness and a little bit of brightness change and redid it in Studio again, it then went up to 13 gigs. So 2 to 13, you know, it's a pretty massive sort of jump really. So we're talking about a 10 times jump in file size to get this 10-bit recording quality. And what do you get for 10 bits? Let's have a look. So if we actually zoom in now on a piece of this footage, it'll help us to see what we're looking at. So ignore this up on the right. This is not an artifact of the GoPro. It's the fact that I had a polarizing lens on, which was just darkening the sky. So that's actually in the camera. That's the way it was shot. So if we zoom in now to 200% or 400%, let's have a look. Okay, 400%. Let's have a look. So let's have a look at this. The houses here and the hill. This is the most important part to look at. Notice that there's a white line around everything. Now this is the one that was done by Cineform. So there's a white line around the edges of everything. Okay, and it's quite stark, garish footage, and there seems to be this sort of noise which is present in a lot of the stuff, but it's non-uniform noise. It's kind of like wishy-washy noise that is dancing around. Let me move you forward a couple of frames and show you what I mean. Can you see the way that the noise actually dances around into different positions? Now, if we have a look at the same piece of footage but direct from the camera, so this one here is direct out of the camera, you can see now that there's hardly any noise visible. Okay, it hasn't been color processed yet. But if we come down to the house area, you'll notice that there is no line around the trees, and it hasn't drawn in any line. Now let's go back to the Cineform one so you can see again. So that's the Cineform, and it's drawn this nasty line around the horizon, onto the horizon. And the noise here is quite bad. Now I'll show you what my color corrected raw comes up like. So that's what happens if you color correct yourself in Premiere. You get noise, but it's more uniform. And I know that this type of noise can be easily cleaned with Neat Video or various other noise cleaning packages. You know, you can get rid of that noise easily, but I don't fare my chances of getting rid of this type of noise that is produced by Cineform, because it's random and it's in bands, and you know it's just something I don't believe I'm going to be able to get rid of easily with a noise cleaner, because it just looks like as if it's part of the actual frame now. It's not going to be noticed by the noise cleaning software. So let's have a look at what I've done with the cleaning. If we come back to fit the frame, so this one's mine, which is my cleanup job. This is the raw. So this is the raw as it comes off the camera. That's the MP4 file with nothing done to it at all. So that's just loaded straight into Premiere. Okay, and then this is if I touch it up myself, and that's what ProTune does. So that's the ProTune one, which, you know, straight off without you playing with anything, you know, the settings there are pretty good. You know, that's what the studio software approximates you need. Okay, so that's not bad. And then you can touch it up and you can play with the darkness and lightness settings, and it doesn't really affect it much. You know, it's still all there. It's retained the sharpness. And the important thing to notice is if you actually do, let's go up close and have a look at some detail again. Now, if you have a look between the original, which went through Studio, so that's compressed once in Cineform Studio, then I went into Cineform Studio Stage 2, which is to change sharpness and change brightness, and then it came away and it came up with this. So there's really no difference, and that's a second level of compression. Really is very little, very little difference. So on that front, the Cineform codec does actually deliver, because it doesn't add more compression, it doesn't add more artifacts. But the first time it adds artifacts, the very first time it runs, it does bugger it up. So, you know, I think that something has to be said about you know, what's going on with this and what's actually happened to Cineform, and see what they've got to say about it. But that's raw from the camera. That's Cineform. Raw from the camera, MP4. That's Cineform AVI. Okay, so this is if I then go to clean it myself. So we go from that's Cineform. That's if I clean it myself. And we can also have a look here, and basically I've got the sharpen mask on, but that's without the sharpen mask on. Okay, so if you want to take it off the camera and clean it up, that's what it looks like without the sharpen mask on. So I just brought it back to the sharpness levels that appeared to be being used. Now I would say myself that again it's drawing in whites around the edges near blacks, which weren't there. You see, so you know, it's taking big artistic license here in what it's actually doing, because it's drawing in white there and white on the fronts of the houses, which isn't there. You can't see that in this version. So, you know, I don't know what it's doing and which algorithm it's using, but it's definitely taking a massive artistic license in what it's actually rendering there. And if you come and compare them, you know, full screen, so that's mine without, that's the Cineform, that's mine. Okay, and if we add the sharpness back in, you can see it's like that. So difference between the two, you know, do you like it? Don't you like it? I think that there's a lot to be said about maybe just doing this in Premiere and using a noise cleaner later on. Let's have a little look at what happens if I play with my gamma settings. So I mean, I can still get a lot of detail, you know, down in these areas of shadow. Let's take you over and have a look. So let's have a look at like shadow areas here. So this is what they say is it's good for getting information out of the shadows and things like that. So I mean there's still loads of latitude there for me to get bits out of the shadows. Now if we do the same thing with, I mean realistically I think it does actually look more messy when you use it, when you're using this. So if I put this on over here and I'll try the same thing, you know, compared like for like, you know, it's got a punchiness to it, the Cineform codec, but it's just drawing in artificial shadows that weren't there. So I think it's kind of faking, it's faking a lot of what it's actually doing by generating these artificial light darks around things like the whites. Now look at this here now. you can see that this is the MP4 footage which has been color corrected, and look what happens with the Cineform. It's drawn in shadows that aren't there. It's drawn in shadows around this object. So, you know, it's definitely screwing around with the footage, and in some ways I think it, you know, it's actually losing detail because of this, because it's drawing in things that aren't there, that are attracting the eye away from the real detail. So, you know, I'm not convinced that this Cineform is actually a good thing. Yeah, okay, once you've got to this level, it's not going to increase any more artifacts by saving it as Cineform again, but do you really want something that's actually going to do this and draw in muck on top of your footage? I mean, look at the green at the bottom. I mean, you know, there's detail in this here, but when we go back to the Cineform one, now it's just a sea of wash. It's just a wash, you know. And I know that I can clean this digital noise nicely with Neat Video, but I won't be able to clean that done with Cineform. That's wrecked it now, and Neat Video will not touch that. So anyway, just thought I'd bring this to your attention, see what you think, see whether or not you know if I'm doing something wrong. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments box below. Try and be constructive, and thanks very much for tuning in. One thing I forgot to mention was that Cineform is now owned by GoPro. Now, they basically bundle this free with the GoPro Studio software, which is a free tool. And you can import your footage, as you know. In fact, I'll call it up for you so you can actually see. You basically, it's really basic software, which I suppose for some people is okay. But I mean, you import your MP4 files into this bit, and then you can just basically take out the fisheye, which is about the only useful thing it does, and then you can export them to AVI, and it'll do them in a conversion list, so you can batch them along. It will slow down footage, but it doesn't do it very well. It doesn't do it with like sort of morphing or like twixtering, so that's not much good really. But then they expect you to load the footage in a second time in this edit tab, and then with the edit tab you can load up your AVI. We'll look at it here, change the balance of the color and all this sort of stuff, and then save it out a second time. So you've already compressed it once, now you've got to compress it a second time. And as I've shown earlier on, basically it takes the footage which was big and then makes it even bigger. It doesn't lose anything by doing it, but it does make it bigger, and also you've got to wait an enormous amount of time for it to compress the second time round. It only took me about 2 minutes to compress a piece of footage. It took 5 minutes the second time round. So this is all a very time-consuming stage that you have to go through before you can even dump this into your real editing software. And you won't want to use this because it's pretty basic software. It's not very powerful at all. But what really cheesed me off is I went to their website and found out that they do actually sell a premium version, and it's $299. And you know, basically it offers 12-bit Cineform, you know, which is even better quality. And you know, I'm not very impressed by the quality reduction of the software Cineform, so I'm not sure that going from 10-bit to 12-bit, you know, when the 10-bit was crap, and I'm sure the 12-bit is unnecessary, then it really does beggar why people would want to pay $299 to go to the premium edition. And you know, definitely the professional edition, which is $999. I mean, you know, considering this is a format which has been bought out by GoPro, you'd think they'd be pricing it at a little bit more of a, you know, sort of get you involved type range. They are expecting you to buy this if you want to go and do 3D stuff with two GoPro cameras. But I mean, you know, GoPro cameras are costing about $300, so you just spent $600 on 2 GoPro cameras. But they want you to spend, you know, almost you know, 1.5 times what it cost you to buy 2 cameras on a piece of shitty little software just to make the cameras actually do what they were designed to do in the first place, which is, you know, produce the 3D properly. So I don't understand, you know, this pricing from GoPro. I think they're taking the piss, but perhaps they're just trying to extend on the sort of pricing because they bought this company out. But I think they really need to rethink this, because, you know, the software doesn't seem to represent anything that you really need. If you're using Premiere, you don't need it, and also it's introducing artifacts which clearly aren't good news. So I wonder, why are they trying to charge $299 or $999 for something which is actually screwing with the quality of the footage? So thank you very much.